Okay, we're on to OSHA. I'm sorry, I skipped one. Interactive Software Advisors from the Department of Labor. Charles Jeffress and Edward Stern. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. OSHA is a small agency with a big mission. We set health and safety standards for all employers through the country to follow. Yet, how do we reach 6 million employers? And how does a small employer with limited time and limited technical knowledge find what he or she needs in this extensive and sometimes complex code of federal regulations? One of our new answers is expert advisors. Our expert advisors are interactive software programs using expert decision logic, if you will, for employers and users to find what they need without searching through the whole code of federal regulations. They combine the expertise of the scientists, the health and safety professionals, the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, the expertise that OSHA has are combined in these software programs to produce for users the information on what they need to know to protect their workers from harm. The expert advisors are free. They're available 24 hours a day, and they are confidential. They prompt the user. If you've come to the expert advisor and got a health and safety question, the expert advisor will ask you about your workplace, about the conditions your people work in, about the materials you use. And the expert advisor will then produce a customized report that is specific to your particular workplace that will tell you what you need to know to protect your workers. It's the first time that a regulatory agency has attempted to package its expertise into an internet accessible or computer disk or CD-ROM accessible program to provide employers what they need to know to protect their workers. It avoids all the limitations of OSHA's previous efforts to reach out to people. Previous efforts, we produced written materials. They can't be customized to an individual workplace. We send people around to assist employers who ask for help. We can't begin to reach every workplace in person. And finally, and perhaps most important, there are a lot of employers out there that simply don't want to call OSHA. They don't want us to know what their problems are. They're afraid we'll send an inspector. So how do we reach these employers? How do we give them what they need that's customized in a way that they can use it quickly, and use it accurately? Give you an example. Our lead and construction advisor. The lead and construction advisor is for those folks who use or encounter lead in the course of their work. For instance, if you're painting bridges, if you're renovating bridges, if you're stripping lead paint off of housing, the advisor will query you. Are you manually scraping that paint? Are you sandblasting it? Are you applying lead paint back on? Depending on what kind of answers you give to the queries that the advisor asks you, the advisor will tell you what kind of respirators your folks should be using, how to monitor the exposure that they're receiving, how to evaluate that exposure, how to make sure that your workers don't take that lead home to their families and to their children, take it home when they're closed. The hazard awareness advisor is a different example, where an employer who, say an entrepreneur who's just started up, who isn't sure what kinds of hazards he or she ought to be concerned about, can put in the type of business they're in, the type of materials they handle, what the conditions are, and the advisor, using those answers, will search thousands of decision points and come back with a unique program that says, given your workplace, given your conditions, here are the hazards you should be concerned about, here are the references to the requirements as to what you need to do, and here's where you can go for extra help. These advisors have proven tremendously popular. 180,000 employers will use them this year. That represents a 50% growth over last year. There's a tremendous increase in the use of these. Trade associations, one way we know that we're reaching people, trade associations, who sometimes are not our greatest friends, are encouraging their members to use them. They are taking the advisors, putting it on their websites. They're providing disks and CD-ROMs for their members to use to get this information to use it. Matter of fact, one way we knew we'd reached a breakthrough, and one of our most frequent critics, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, put a hot link between their site and ours and says, hey, OSHA can help you. Call up their site. We knew that OSHA had a new way of working that was making a difference for employers. It was making a difference for us, helping us leverage our limited resources to get information out there to help people protect workers. It has worked for us. Other people have seen it and been excited about it. Within the Labor Department, the Family Medical Leave Act regulations are now available through an expert advisor. Child labor rules in terms of when you can work children and when workplaces are available through expert advisors. Other agencies are beginning to develop. The Environmental Protection Agency that you heard from today. HUD has a link to our site specifically for that lead paint for people who may be renovating housing. Small Business Administration. The Department of Defense is using it for their managers. These are examples of how it's replicated. But clearly for us, these represent a new way of working, and for employers, it represents a new and better way to break that code of federal regulations.
Thank you. We'll turn to questions. Perhaps one of the questions can also be addressed to Mr. Stern. Yes, please, Ed Doran.
What's the legal status of the advice I get when I dial this up? That is, if I follow your rules and one of your inspectors shows up and says you're out of compliance, what's my situation?
Well, of course, the purpose of the advisor is to make sure you're not out of compliance. As a matter of fact, one of the feedback we got from one of employers after an inspection was, boy, I wish I'd had this advice before the inspection. We think they would not have been out of compliance. But if an inspector comes in and finds an employer has used these advisors, still hasn't fixed everything that needs to be fixed, we have what we call good faith credit, where we will reduce whatever kind of penalty might otherwise have been applied if someone has shown good faith in developing a program to address their hazards.
So you would still require me to follow the real rule, spend additional resources to come into compliance, even though I could demonstrate to you that the rules I was following I had gotten from your computerized system.
No, if you can demonstrate that the rules that you got from our system applied and you did what you were asked to do, you will be in compliance with the OSHA regulations. We have this conflict occasionally between consultants and inspectors. This isn't the only situation where there may be a second guess that's going on. Employees have to be protected. That's number one. But we look at what good faith effort the employers put forth to make it possible.
Please, Carl.
I think this is to Mr. Stern. Just so I understand how this works, once you've created an expert advisor, does that have to be updated, or is it really just a software that facilitates access and targeted access to your rules and regulations that presumably are constantly updated and reliable?
Generally, once we've solved one of these problems, which is being done by a panel of experts, the problem has been addressed, and for the most part, things are stable for quite a while. It may be that as a result of litigation or some later rulemaking, a rule will change, in which case we will have to change the software. We've done that on asbestos as a result of litigation. 5 years later, after cadmium standard went out, we changed the cadmium advisor. But these are not tools just to link you to information already available. These are problem identifying and problem solving tools to help people figure out things which, frankly, they would be very difficult for them to figure out themselves for the non-initiated people.
David Osborne.
Your application essentially says that it's too early to tell the outcomes of this effort. I'll read you a sentence. You say, once the use expands to several 100,000 establishments, it might be possible to measure changes in business practice and improvements in worker health and safety with statistical validity. I applaud you for your honesty, but that puts us in a tough position because you're saying this is a great innovation, but we can't prove to you that it produces better results for the American people. So can you give it your best shot? I mean,
Yeah.
without statistical validity?
In terms of the use of the document, the fact that the curve is growing at the rate it is suggests that people are finding it useful. People want it confidential. They don't want OSHA to know that they've gotten this information. So statistically, I can't go back to everyone who's using it to ask what you did. The bottom line for us is, are you protecting workers? Are workers better protected today? And I think the kind of feedback Ed is getting, the bottom of every expert advisor gives Ed's email and says, contact Ed for feedback. The kind of feedback he's getting is the evidence we have that, in fact, it makes a difference.
Yeah, people are emailing us from around the country, and for that matter, around the world. Obviously, people outside the United States are not covered by OSHA standards, but they, in fact, are using them all over the world because they're good guidance. And both from around the world and around the United States, we are getting feedback from people who are saying, wow, thanks for developing this. We're using this. It's helping me show management what needs to be done. I mean, we're getting positive information from those are telling people, are urging them. I mean, basically everybody from the U.S. Army, pardon me, the U.S. Air Force Surgeon General's office on cadmium, telling its constituency to use it, to the National Barbecue Association, telling people, and we figure, if you can't believe the Barbecue Association, who can you believe? They are telling users to go out and use this. NFIB is saying, do this before OSHA shows up.
Now, let's pursue this. When OSHA inspectors show up, are they seeing any evidence of greater compliance than they have in the past? And have you seen any evidence of greater, that the injury rate or the fatality rates are going down?
Well, OSHA inspects about 35,000 places a
Right.
year. There's 6 million. So the chances of our hitting a place that has used the advisors is relatively low. The compliance officers are suggesting to people when they make the inspections, here's some places to go for help. As I said, the email earlier, I wish I'd had this before the inspection. So we are using them to encourage compliance. At this point, in terms of how many places have we been, have folks used the advisor, can we measure that? It hasn't been enough overlap. We don't have any citation on any statistics on that overlap to be able to tell you that answer.